All right. Joining me now on Zero Block 30 is former guest. I actually went back and checked. He joined us on episode 35. Many of you know the name. Many of you know his story as Nate Boyer, former Green Beret. Are you guys in Green Berets? Do you guys kind of like the Marines where you say once a, Green Beret, always a Green Beret?
I mean, I do, but
Yeah. No, rightfully
uh,
so. Rightfully
yeah,
so.
but I don't. I
Rightfully
mean, it's
so.
better than X. You know what I mean? People
Yeah.
will say like, "Oh yeah, he's ex-military." I'm like, I didn't divorce the
Right.
military. I mean,
Right.
I guess
Right.
I kind of did. I separated.
No, former,
I left. I
former.
packed up and left.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but you know what? You left on your own terms. And I think a lot of people know your story. And we told it the first time you were on how you transitioned from the Green Berets, went got your college degree at University of Texas, played football, transitioned into the NFL. And then from there, I think is really where we want to pick the story up. I see you wearing the shirt, Emerging Vets and Players, your organization that you founded with Jay Glazer, and now we have the movie of the same name, MVP. So let's start with the organization though, because I think what we all know is one of the hardest parts about transitioning out of the military is what do I do next? How do I find that tribe that I had for so long in the military or as a professional athlete? And a lot of guys and gals find themselves lost. So, what was the transition like for you out of, I guess, ultimately the NFL was your last stop in that regard, and then the genesis of MVP?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the answer. Losing the uniform, the jersey, versus the
Mm-hmm.
camouflage. Because I was lucky to have football to transition into. There wasn't really a gap there either. I mean, I went right into it, not realizing how difficult that is for a lot of people. I mean, of course you hear it, but I think as an individual, many of us are like, well, yeah, that's how they dealt with it, but I'm not going to have that issue. I'm going to be fine because I know what I want to do and I know what I'm into and I know I'm, tough and I'll figure it out. Like that's what I do. And and that may be true, but at the same time, like there's so many pieces to that, from um the loss of like that sense of purpose and doing something that really makes a difference, to like survivor's guilt, of losing folks that you served alongside, just general guilt of not doing that anymore, and it's like there's still people going over there and sacrificing, and so I don't know. I just like I had the all of a sudden I had the football locker room, and I did miss it enough to reenlist into the National Guard while I was playing in
Mm-hmm.
college. So, my whole time in college, I was still serving. I did go overseas a couple more times in that frame. And then when I ended that time, when I ended that time in the National Guard, right about when college ended, and that's when I had my shot with the Seahawks. So kind of went all full steam ahead into that, not really thinking about anything else, just trying to stay on the team as long as I could. And then when
And that's
that
a
ended,
full time job,
yeah,
as we all
yeah.
know. Just staying on an NFL roster is a very very difficult thing to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I failed. But I was on for, 5 months. I'll give it
Right.
that. Um, but yeah, and then when that ended, and it was like you kind of take a step back, and I stayed in shape for a year, for in football shape for a year anyway, and kind of kept the weight up with the hopes of getting another shot, and I never did. And it sucked. And that's when it really started to affect me and feel like, man, I miss that locker room more than anything. Like I miss the guys, but also I miss like fighting for something and the challenge and the stakes, even though the stakes in the military and on the football field are very different. It's still generally high stakes. Like a lot of people watch football, 100,000 people go to games, millions watch on TV for a reason, because it does matter to us, as a
Right.
culture. Um, and we've never compared, yeah, the type of sacrifices you have to make to serve at a high level in the military and to play at a high level in sports. There are different types of sacrifice, but there is a lot of sacrifice involved. It takes a lot to get there. You pour everything into it. A lot of these guys that play, professional sports, they've been focused on that since they were 8 years old, and that's like
Mm-hmm.
all they're going
All
to
they
be.
know.
All they're going to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
and all they know. And then it's over, and it's not really on your terms, and you're pretty young. and trying to navigate that and figure that out. And I remember realizing how similar that narrative was that I was feeling to what a lot of people in the military had talked about, like when they left, a lot of them kind of disconnected from the rest of from the guys they served with, not because they don't want to be around them anymore, but they just felt like I don't belong. I'm not wanted. I'm kind of like just sort of lost, and I don't have an identity now. So like, what are they going to? They don't want me bothering them. They got stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they kind of go on their own, and a lot of times that leads to some kind of dark places. And Glazer and I started having conversations about it because he knew a lot of guys in the league and even coaches, that when that happens and it's not on your terms and it just ends all of a sudden. I mean, the average NFL career is 3 years. So
Mm-hmm.
that means guys are 25 years old and they feel like they've peaked and they're never be great again. That's a tough thing to come to grips with and have to try and navigate and figure out like who you are. So we started the charity, merging vets and players, to bring together these two groups, combat vets, former professional athletes, and just help them find that purpose and identity and locker room again when the uniform comes off. We started the end of 2015, and starting out, man, it was like I actually went down to there's a homeless shelter on Sunset Boulevard in East Hollywood, and it was all veterans living in this place. It was like Volunteers of America and the VA together had like just kind of stood this place up. It was called the Hollywood Vet Center, HVC,
Mm-hmm.
and 48 bunks in there. It's like a barracks. They call it the barracks. All the guys live
Mm-hmm.
in there. It's a transition house, though, really. I mean, it's supposed to be like a year, sober environment, like whatever, but not everybody. It doesn't work out for everybody. Some guys are there longer than they need to be, and some guys aren't able to stay sober. And then on the opposite of that, a lot of them, it's very effective, and they get out of there and they get back on their feet and figure it out and kind of move forward and reintegrate. But I thought that was such an interesting place, and a lot of those guys started coming up to the gym, to Jay's gym, Unbreakable Performance Center in West Hollywood, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd work out at the gym, like me and six of these dudes, like when the gym was closed, and then we'd go get tacos. And I was telling Jay about it. I was like, bro, this is what it is. Like, I don't know. This is what we can do on a weekly basis. I mean,
Sure.
beyond changing narratives and doing these other things. And he was like, all right. I was like, you got to come up, man. You got to come out, work out with these guys. And so he did. And he brought Randy Couture with him the first time. So
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty cool for all the guys.
Yep.
And we just started training. Then afterwards, we hung out on the wrestling mats and just talked through our stuff, just open forum, peer-to-peer coaching session. I mean, you've been to
Yep.
up there in New York before. You know what it's like. And by the way, we're slowly getting back to opening in New York again. Like I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. But that's how MVP the charity started, and now it's 6 years older. We're 6 years older, and we've got 8 chapters around the country, and we're continuing to grow and expand. And obviously, COVID changed a lot of things for us. Kind of shut down. We had to jump to a Zoom format, but it also opened the doors for doing what else we're going to talk about in a
Yeah.
minute.
Absolutely. But I know you're so right though, because like I think about it in my own life when I run into somebody and they say like, oh, I played football at whatever level, or I was in the military, there's that instant connection and we could just start having a conversation and you already kind of know what type of person you're dealing with. Everybody has their own personality, sure, but the sheer fact that we all experience a similar path, I think is an easy way. So it makes so much sense that these two groups were able to come together and become what is MVP. And then for you during this time, but since MVP started and now, we'll just get right into it. You've had a career in Hollywood. So, we've seen you. You're kind of shaking your head there. I mean, we've seen you in well-known movies, Den of Thieves. We've seen you in most recently on the Terminal List where, people are shouting you out. I saw you in an episode of one of my favorite shows, This Is Us. How did you break into the world of Hollywood and start down that path for you?
I mean, it was something I became interested in at 19. So before I joined the Army, I
Okay.
grew up in the Bay Area. I moved to San Diego, worked on a fishing boat for like a year. And this is going to be the most cliche ever, but I did. I saw a couple movies, including Fight Club, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I mean, that spoke to a lot of people from our generation, a lot of dudes especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, like the theme of this movie is breaking the rules. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do X, Y, and Z. And I thought it was a great movie. And then I was just like, I mean, what an interesting way to tell that story. And I just became all of a sudden just enamored with storytelling. And I knew nothing about it. It never thought crossed my mind of like whether in front of or behind the camera, like doing anything like that. I was always just sports, like period.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I was 19 and I had no scholarship offers, and I was like gonna maybe play junior college baseball down there, and then I wasn't, and I was just kind of drifting. This was just something to like grab onto. And I was into it. So I moved up to LA with no clue where to start or whatever. Um, Ended up just partying for a while, and then a year later 9/11 happened, and then some other
Right.
thing. And so I
Right.
never, but it was always like it stayed with me as like this interest of mine,
Mm-hmm.
um, all the way through the military, college, playing football. I just kind of knew in the back of my head, like one day I do want to come back to this. I don't know in what regard, like if it would just be sports centric or whatever. But I came out here. I had a master's degree in advertising from UT. And to finish my degree, I did this program called the UTLA program, where you came out, you took some classes in Los Angeles. It's kind of like a semester abroad, but you're in Hollywood basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then and you have to do an internship. And I did my internship with Peter Berg in Film 44.
Sure. Okay.
So it was like, this guy makes military movies, he makes sports movies. He's kind of a guy's guy. Like it just made
Mm-hmm.
sense to me. I was like, if I'm going to understand this language and kind of learn at least the stories he's telling are things that I can relate to.
Yeah, they
This
resonate with you and your
exactly,
path that you've taken.
exactly. And so, and I thought, also me being in there, the people that are working there, maybe I won't just have to make coffee and, clean the fridge out. That's about 90% of what I did. But I did get to, to do some script coverage, and also, not sitting on phone calls, but they'd pick my brain about things. They were working on, at the time, it's actually not a military or sports movie at all, but they were working on a script called Comancheria, which eventually got made, and they changed the name into Hell or High Water. And so like that was cool I was like in the room when the script was done, but they were like casting it and figuring
Yep.
out that, who's going to direct this thing and how we're going to do it and blah, blah, blah. And then it goes on to, have great success. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
a movie, but it was Oscar success. And, so, yeah, I just like took what I learned there in those few months. That was actually before I went to Seattle. Then I got picked up by the Hawks, went up there, and then when I came back, I a few doors opened with meeting people and relationships because of playing football, and a story got told a little bit, and I just
Mm-hmm.
jumped on it. I was like, man, I'm just gonna put myself out there and kind of go for it. And so, most of the things I was working on, including that internship, like unpaid or barely paid, just learning, and just trying to like figure out how this all works. And I started taking acting classes too, because either way, like whether you even want to act or not, like if you want to work in this industry on the creative side, understanding like that process and how it works, and kind of it'll help you communicate what you want from people. So like I knew that
Sure.
was valuable. But I did like enjoy it. I did enjoy it too. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I directed MVP. I want to do
Yeah.
that again. Like that is I love that. But acting it is fun. It is really challenging. It's super competitive. So all those things make sense for like the military, the
Mm-hmm.
football path. Like now it's something else that is certainly not easy. But
Yeah.
you can
So
be
I mean,
creative.
in a way, you've taken kind of an unconventional path that most veterans would take, but in a lot of ways, it's conventional in that each part of your journey you've built on the previous step. Your football career was kind of built on what you had done in the military and then down the
100%.
line. So now you just woke up one morning and you decided I'm a writer, I'm a director, and I'm going to make a movie? Because I mean, we all know it's not that simple, Nate. We all know it's not that simple.
No, no, no.
You got to get a lot of money to make a movie. I don't know if you had written anything prior to this. How did you even start to think, okay, I need to turn my, for all intents and purposes, I watched the trailer. It looks awesome. There's a lot of parallels between your life, from what I can tell, and this movie. So what was the genesis of MVP, the movie?
So this was probably 4 years ago when that thought first popped. And yeah, at that time, I think I just filmed I had a real small part in 12 Strong and then Den of
Mm-hmm.
Thieves like right after that. And so I was doing some acting stuff and it was cool. I'm not saying like that I don't appreciate it and didn't love it, but being around set and watching the um the producers and the directors and even the writer and those people, and like having them having to figure out how to solve problems, and like I just was like, oh, I want to help, I want to
Mm-hmm.
I want to be part of that too. Like this is, I'm not complaining about eating crafty and
Craft services are great.
and kind of waiting around for my turn to go on, but it's a lot of sitting around and doing nothing when you're acting, unless you're like the lead. And I certainly was
Mm-hmm.
not that. So like I wanted to be a part of that stuff. And so I came back, I went to an MVP session not long after, and this dude from the UK, he served in the British military. Um, his name's Garrett Jones, and he'd come to a couple MVP sessions, and we started talking, and he was just like, "Hey, let's go get lunch. I want to share something with you. I have an idea about something." I was like, "All right." I didn't really know this guy at all, and go to lunch with him, find out he's a writer and he's written some novels. He's written some memoirs, like pretty popular stuff, and he had worked a little bit on like a very very small show out in the UK. So like scripted stuff in that regard, which is that writing is, if you've ever read a screenplay, it's completely different than a book.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird, kind of hard to read. Once you understand it, it's very easy to read. It's quick. But he was like, man, I think I want to make a movie about MVP. And I was like, okay, like, I mean, that sounds great, but like, what is it? What do you mean? Like,
Right.
it's and he's like, no, like, how it started, like where this came from. I don't know. And I just started thinking, and I told him that story about me going down to the
Mm-hmm.
shelter and all that. And he was just like, oh, that's it. And this guy's like, he's very smart and he writes very fast. So he's like, let me just go do an outline and see. And I was like, okay, I hadn't written anything before, so I didn't really know. So he
Mm-hmm.
comes back like 2 days later with like a 40-page outline. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So we go
Mm-hmm.
through it, we throw out a bunch of stuff, we change stuff, refine that. And the key to this whole process, and this is from this moment all the way through to the very end, was like being super collaborative. And that means like just trusting the people you put in certain departments to do their job, but also, dude, listening to everybody from, PAs to like someone with a small role, especially if they've been there. If they have an idea about something, like just listen to it. I mean, it can be overwhelming, I guess, at times, but that's how I believe this thing not only got done, but I'm pretty proud of it. And it's because it was 100% group work, like in school. I did not do this by myself, not even close.
Right.
And so we did that, and we started sending it to people I'd met along the way. The director of Den of Thieves, Christian Gudegas, writer director, he gave
Mm-hmm.
us script notes, and he crucified it as he should have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm hearing stories, reading about like the first draft of Good Will Hunting and what Ben Affleck and Matt Damon had written. I don't know if you ever heard that story, but like Will Hunting goes to space. Like it's a
Yeah.
completely different movie,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because I imagine they were collaborative and they had people they trusted in the industry be like, this is what's important. Like the relationship between the therapist and Will, that's
Right.
the story. And so they completely changed it. And that's what we did. We started out with this much larger, I mean, there was flashbacks going to Afghanistan or Iraq and like all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. People are like, don't need it, don't need it. Like what I care about is this former athlete, the character's name is Will Phillips in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and Zephyr, the veteran who's living in this shelter. And these two guys, their relationship, that is your movie. Everything else you can build around that, but like the fact that these guys from completely different worlds on paper, black guy, white guy, nice car, house, he's got the family. This guy's in a shelter, but they're going through the exact same thing. They relate and are just on just this mutual respect they have, but also the egos that they battle with, in their own minds and all that. Like they get it, and he's like those people are what's interesting here. And so we just kept stripping it away, and eventually got to a place where it felt pretty good, and we started sharing it. And that's when Braden Aftergood, who used to work at Film 44, he was Pete Berg's head of features over there.
Mhm.
Now he's still Sylvester Stallone's producing partner. I sent it to him, and he called me and was like, let's do this. Like, we should make this movie. And I was like, all right. And he's like, but you need to have a veteran direct it. Because I was, at the time, I was like not thinking I was going to direct it. I was thinking like, maybe I'll play a small part, but like, we're going to get, real actors.
Yeah, real actors and real directors. Yeah.
And real directors. And he was just like, hey, I think this thing, it's lower budget for sure, but you should find a veteran director. I think because of the story, I think it would be super interesting. You're going to have a ton of vets on the cast and crew. And I told him a lot of the smaller parts throughout, which we ended up doing anyway. I was like, I want to have vets playing actual vets. I want to have athletes playing the athletes, like the real guys. A good example that just came out was Hustle.
Yep.
Movie, Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it. But
those
guys,
awesome.
They're so good. And those guys aren't actors. Most of those guys are basketball players, but you coach them up a little bit, like they know the world. It's just so much more believable and interesting. So I wanted to do the same kind of thing, and he agreed, and so I started kind of trying to meet people and all that, and eventually I just got to the place where I believed in myself enough. I was like, I can do this. I can, if I put a good team around me, like we can do this, is a better way of putting that.
Yeah.
And I'll save money because I'm not paying myself anything, so there we go. So because what started out being a $3 or $4 million movie was like a $2 or $1 million movie to like, if I told you what we actually shot this for, like you would just laugh. I mean, it's not much, but it's because people were just wanted to be a part of it, including everybody you see on screen and Stallone putting his name on it. They just wanted to help get it made.
That's awesome. So do you think, certainly what I'm hearing from you is that networking has been very important throughout your career, both, post-military and current day and with MVP. But do you think any part of people have just said like, we'll give this guy a shot because he's a veteran? Or do you think you've kind of proved to them, hey, I have a viable story and a viable product, and we're going to give you a shot because it's an actual good story and not just like some sort of like, hey, sympathy, let's make a movie? Because I also feel like that probably doesn't happen often, where people just make a movie because they feel like they obligated to do something for someone. So what was the case with MVP?
No, I'll be honest. I think opportunities I've gotten in a couple of roles, like over the years, like honestly, like I in 12 Strong, I know they really wanted to find a place for me in that movie. I'd actually been cast as a different role that get cut out of the script, and then they ended up calling me like, we really want you to have me in that. So I think because of my story and all that, being a vet, they wanted to have me in it. Similar to even This Is Us, I think I had a leg up over some of the other people auditioning because of my story and the fact that I was a vet. No doubt about that. In this case, I really don't think so, because somebody's got to pay for that, right? Like, especially the financier position, like they want to feel, even on an ultra low budget like us, they still want to feel like I'm not just pissing my money away. Like there's at least a chance that it's going to do something, and be all right. And I produced a film earlier that year. This is back in 2020, in early 2020, similar budget, and developed the confidence that I could do this, but also like the DP, Logan Fulton, who's a good friend of mine. He's incredible. He's young. I think he's 27, 28 maybe, but he's amazing. He went up there and shot that. I got him on that project too. He shot that movie. And when I was able to show people, and a lot of vets worked on that project too, like, hey, look, this is how this looks, and this is how we made it for. They're like, oh, wow. Like, that's amazing. And I'm like, so like, we're not going to it's not going to look like we shot it on a cell phone, or something. Like we're going to, and the sound, where I'm going to make sure all these things are good. I will not let it, my background in the military, I think, will speak to that. Like I don't want to let this thing fail, and I also don't want to do it half-assed. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be the highest quality it possibly can. Like please just trust me on that. And so I think that was probably more the concern. Maybe I don't know. But then the story, when people knew about MVP, the charity, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
what merging vets and players is, what it does, who it serves, I think that inspired them too. It's just like, all right, well, at the very least, it's going to be good for this organization. The movie may suck, but like, and it may still.
No,
I
I
guess
don't think it
the
will.
jury's out. The jury's out. We'll see. But yeah, and I think that was the biggest part of it was just um inspiring them through the story that we wrote, but also like the story that already exists with the people. Because it's all, man, all those stories, like you said earlier, like there is a piece of me in there, but there's a piece of so many of the men and women that walk through our doors every week at MVP, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
vets and the athletes. Those are this Will Phillips character and this Zephyr character are composite. You know, like
Sure.
they are, and they're all like real things that have been said, and then we get in there and we shoot this thing, and Randy Couture and Jay Glazer and
Mm-hmm.
Tony Gonzalez, even Strahan and Howie Long have a cameo, and
Yeah, it's star studded for sure. If you
yeah,
check out the
it's cool. And
IMDb
they
page,
all
yeah.
like they're all playing themselves, and like when Randy and Tony are talking in our huddles, like our MVP huddles as part of that movie, like what they say, I won't spoil it, but like the stories they tell are their stories, like they're
Mm-hmm.
real stories. And it doesn't feel, it's just like writing that line where it doesn't feel like they're reading anything scripted, because they're not, but also it feels like a movie. It doesn't feel like it's just a documentary. Like there's some energy behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely. So
cool,
it's
man.
like it's not the Nate Boyer story, but there's a lot of
No, no,
truth and
no.
honesty behind every character in the movie.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I mean, like every veteran portrayed on screen, every single one is played by an actual vet. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like, and there's a lot of them. There's 15 or so vets in the story, and they're all veterans, actual veterans playing, including Dan Loria, who was the dad on the Wonder Years back in
Yeah,
the
of course. Yeah,
he's
Jack
a he's a
Arnold.
he's a Vietnam vet,
Yep.
Yeah, great dude. I was just talking with him earlier today. Um, and so yeah, it's just like the fact that we were very specific on that. I mean, the other actors, like I said, Tom Arnold's got a cameo, but Mo McRae
Mm-hmm.
plays the lead. He plays Will Phillips. Unbelievable. Like this guy
Mm-hmm.
is unreal. And Christina Ochoa, who plays his wife, and Dina Shihabi, who plays like the love interest of Zephyr. And then Talia Jackson, the daughter of Will Phillips, are awesome and very not only like just respectful, but they felt so honored to be there, and like they're getting paid pennies. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
that, it felt good once they were there and around it, and to see, like I was so worried, like, oh, they're going to get here and I'm going to have to like take care of these actors or whatever.
Yeah, and like make excuses for what's going on. Like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry. It's
yeah,
like, we only have 2 craft service tables as opposed to 5. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
know what? Yeah,
But
share my
yeah,
crackers.
yeah.
No, they
Hey, we
like
all got you
nobody
in the
can.
same trailer. Sorry about
Nobody,
that.
yeah, there was no trailers. There was no trailers,
There you
and
go.
that, and nobody, and none of them, not once did any of them complain about a damn thing. So they were just, it was awesome. It was really hard. I mean, of course, every day something went wrong, and I freaked out, and people
Mm-hmm.
had to calm me down and
Yeah.
soothe me. But
No,
no,
that's awesome.
it was
That's
cool.
awesome. So, I mean, when is it coming out? Where can people see it?
Yeah. So September 14th, next Wednesday night, it'll be playing in 35 theaters around the country at 7:30 p.m. no matter where you are, 7:30 your time zone. All AMC theaters. The website to go find out where the theater near you is, it's filmrise-screenings.com/MVP. It's a little cumbersome, but what you can also do, which is a lot easier, is go to vetsandplayers.org. That's our website for MVP, the charity. On the homepage, it'll say watch the MVP movie. Click on that, and it'll show you where they're playing. But it's all 30 NFL cities. I keep wanting to say 32 because there's 32 teams, but there's 2 in New
Mm-hmm.
York, 2 in LA.
Right.
So
Right.
all 30 NFL cities plus San Diego, San Antonio, Austin, Salt Lake City, and Orlando. I think we're swapping Columbus for Cincinnati because there wasn't an AMC in Cincinnati. So sorry, Bengals fans, you're gonna have to drive like a whatever that is, hour and a half. But yeah, so go get your tickets, come out, support. I mean, if you can't make it, totally all good. It'll be playing what do you call it? Limited release in theaters starting on Friday, that next Friday, September 16th. I'm just not sure exactly where yet.
Okay.
And then on Veterans Day is when it will flip to streaming. So it'll be video on demand at first. Then I'm not sure exactly where uh, it'll land. Like, at the end of the day, we're still gonna negotiate that deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but that's the deal. I mean, the big thing for me is this next Wednesday, September 14th. I picked a Wednesday night specifically because it's football season. You can't mess with
Right.
football.
Yeah, you don't want to compete
So
with the NFL or college football. Sure.
the only options were because also you got Friday Night Lights. Tuesday
Right.
and Wednesday nights were like the only choice, and so we
Mm-hmm.
ended up doing Wednesday night. But yeah, in New York it'll be at the 34th Street AMC. In LA it'll be at the Grove where we're doing our big premiere as well. And then yeah, every other NFL city it's going to be at an AMC. So please go see this movie and share our mission, share what MVP is all about. And if you want to donate, we're not going to say no. So anybody that wants to donate, and also there's a way to through that site too. You can set up a screen of your own. So and no matter where you are in the country, if you want to do this, there's a process, of course, and either rent a theater space or selling a number of tickets. But like the movie will come to you, and I'll come with it. So
Very cool. Very cool. So I'll leave you with this last question. As folks see this movie in the coming weeks, coming months, what do you hope that people leave their viewing experience thinking and feeling?
That's a really good question, man. I want them thinking and feeling that I can relate to these human beings, these people, because that's really all they are. They're just people that made a decision, especially those that serve in the military. Because a lot of from the athlete side, there's a little more to it in the sense of, certain God-given abilities, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But especially from the veteran side, that we're just human beings. We're just people. We volunteered to do something pretty special, and we are proud of that. But we're also super riddled with mistakes, and we fall short all the time, and we say things we don't mean, and we need help, but we're often afraid to ask for it. So, it doesn't always mean that we're all living in a shelter and need help in that regard. But we're proud and often
Absolutely.
don't ask for it, but we need it, but we need it. And so I think just walking away from there, my hope would be that they see the hope in all of these people, no matter how like quote unquote damaged or borderline broken they may be. Like there's still hope. We can still get out of this. Roughly 22 veterans a day lose a battle with suicide, and that's a fight that we're continuing to combat, and like we're not gonna ever stop, I don't think. So not only that there's hope there, but that like we just want to belong, and like anybody, we just want to belong and feel normal, and that uniform we wore, it's a part of us, but it's not who we are. We're the person that took the oath and was willing to put that thing on and go overseas, and now we're back home, and we just want to enjoy our lives and chase our American dreams too, and that's it. So I just hope that they see that, and there's less, we can more and more kind of bridge that divide or gap or whatever you want to call it between the quote unquote civilian community and the veteran community.
Awesome, Nate. Well, I appreciate you taking time to join us. I think you are just an outstanding example for veterans. I applaud how much you're giving back to our veteran community and really just being a beacon of hope and what right looks like for veterans, and showing them that there is life after the military and they too can be successful, and in a lot of ways probably live out their dream, just like you are, that 19-year-old kid who wanted to work in Hollywood, and now you're kind of doing that. So I congratulate you on this movie. I can't wait to see it. And I look forward to having a conversation with you afterwards and telling you what I think. So Nate, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, go see MVP.
I appreciate you so much, brother. Thanks so much.